So this is a niche called animal fusion, and this is a super popular style of content on YouTube. As we can see, 8.9 million views, 6.3 million, 5.7 million, 5.5 million, and so on. And basically it's exactly how it sounds. They're taking two types of animals and basically fusing them together to make, one sort of ultra hybrid monster of sorts. So let's just take a look at this one here with 8.9 million views. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, the cool thing about this niche is that YouTube is one of the best platforms for monetization, and this niche works quite well on YouTube. Now, there are a number of different styles and workflows for these types of videos, but I'm going to show you a workflow using ChatGPT that's very simple and straightforward and very easy to create these kind of videos. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is come into ChatGPT right here, and I'm just going to paste this very simple prompt that says, please list 50 animals. Okay, so now I have my list of all these animals. So now I just have to choose which ones I want to fuse together. And so in this case, let's try an owl, which is number 33. And we'll do a lion, which is number 1. And so all I'm gonna do here is paste this next prompt, which says create a 9:16 image of, and here I'm just gonna put number 1 and number 33. And I'm going to send that, and let's see what we get here. Okay, so here is the result, and that looks pretty good. And so now I'm just gonna paste the next prompt, which says convert this to a JPEG, because ChatGPT by default doesn't create these images in a JPEG format, and we're gonna need these to be a JPEG for the following steps. All right, so now it's just went ahead and created a downloadable JPEG file here. So now I can move on to my next prompt, which is going to be create a 9:16 photorealistic image of an angry giant hybrid creature combining the elements of the previous two animals. So let's see what we get here. Okay, so here's our result, and we have a lion owl hybrid here. Looks pretty awesome. Also keep in mind, if you wanted to re-roll that image, you can just come right here and click try again. I'm using the GPT 4.0 model, so you will have to have the upgraded version of ChatGPT to generate images like this. But keep in mind, I've also tested this process using Midjourney and Flux and a number of other image generation tools. ChatGPT in this case actually gets the best results because ChatGPT seems to have, the best imagination, I guess you could say, when it comes to, combining and imagining these animals sort of fused together in this way. And so again, I'm just going to paste in, convert this to a JPEG so that we can get a downloadable JPEG here. And I'll just click that to download it. And now I'm just going to repeat this process with a handful of these different animals right here. And I will move on after I finish that. All right, so I just finished fusing these animals. We've got a parrot and a skunk. We've got a elephant and a bat. We've got a lemur and a shark, and a kangaroo and a penguin, a zebra and a frog. One thing that's cool about this niche is that there's just a ton of creative flexibility. It doesn't really matter how many people are doing this niche. There's just so many different interesting combinations that you can make to where it's interesting to watch every single time. So if we go back to this YouTube video, obviously they're taking the two animals here and then they're fusing them together like this. However, I'm going to take this one step further, and I'm going to bring the fused creatures to life using Kling AI. So I'm here on the image to video section on Kling AI. I've uploaded my image here, and I'm just going to type in a giant monster walks and lightning strikes in the background. Okay, so here is the result I ended up with right here, which turned out pretty cool, but I wanted to play around with the prompt a little bit more. So I kind of just changed it around, and here was the second result right here, which I think came out a little bit better. And then I reran it one more time, and this was the third result right here. So all three are pretty cool, but I'm just going to continue this process with the rest of the fusion monsters, and I'll show you the results after that. All right, so now I have all of these clips from Kling. Here is the giant frog, zebra. Here's our elephant bat. Here's the parrot skunk. And I went ahead and reran this one because he decided to sprout a third leg here. However, I'm gonna go ahead and download these clips and move on to the next step. All right, so in the case of this YouTube video, they've got a little bit of animation going on here with these images where they kind of just slide in and out like this, which I'm assuming they're probably using CapCut for this. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a similar sort of animation using Premiere Pro. So all I'm gonna do is click on the image right here. I'm gonna come up to my effects controls. I'll expand this out a little bit and pull this over here. And now I just want to create some keyframes to start animating a little bit of movement on this image. So all I'm gonna do here is click the position keyframe and the scale keyframe. I'm gonna highlight those over here. I'm gonna bring them to the very start of the clip. I'm gonna move this about halfway down the image. And then I'm going to scale this up to about right there or so. And then I'm gonna move this up the timeline again. And I'm gonna scale this back down to about right there. And then I'll just kind of space these out so that it's even, like so. And after doing that, we now have this sort of in and out zooming movement like this. But the problem here is that the movement is sort of sharp and I want to make it a little bit more fluid. So what I'm going to do is highlight my keyframes. I'm going to right click on the keyframe. I'm going to come down to temporal interpolation and I'm going to change this to continuous Bezier. Then I'm going to right click again and come back here again. We're going to click ease in and one more time, temporal interpolation, and click ease out. And so now when I play this clip, we can see it has this a little bit more of a fluid movement there. The next thing I'm going to do is we can see that he's basically just putting a plus sign on these clips to obviously signify that they're adding these two creatures together. And so for this, I'm just going to click T on my keyboard and I'm going to click over on our project right here and just add a plus sign. And now I can size that up to be whatever I want right here. On the project, we can see I now have this new layer with the plus sign. I'm going to click that. We're on effects controls right here. I'm going to come right here to where it says text. And now I can change the color, the stroke, the shadows, and everything like that. So if I click on the stroke, this is basically an outline. So I'm going to create a black outline on there. And then I'll just add a drop shadow like so. And now what we have is this right here. All right, so it looks a little bit better. And now at this point, I'm going to bring in the animated hybrid monster right here. I'm going to size this up to about that. Then I'm going to come to my effects. We'll go to video transitions and we'll try a Mobius zoom transition right here. So let's see what that looks like. Let's try the Rippler instead. Obviously you can use whatever you want. And so now this is our transition. I think that's pretty good like that. Now to make the next image easier, I'm going to click back on our image clip right here. I'm going to go back to effects controls and I'm going to right click on motion and I'm going to save this as a preset and I can name this whatever I want. I've actually already done this, so I'm not going to do it now, but you would just name it whatever you want, click OK, and then you'll have that animation saved as a preset. So I'll bring the next image in right here, which is our bat and the elephant. I'm going to go to effects and then I'm going to go to presets and then I'm going to go to motion animation, which is that in and out preset. I'm going to drop it right there. And now we have that in and out motion already set on there. Now to bring the plus sign over, I'm just going to click on the plus sign. I'm going to hold Alt and I'm just going to drag that over here and that will basically duplicate that plus sign. So now we have it on this image as well. And then I'll bring in the hybrid clip right here. We'll add in the Rippler transition right there. And now what we have is this right here. All right, so that's pretty much how you do it. So I'll go ahead and finish up this part and then I'll show you the end result. All right, so after throwing it all together, here's what we ended up with right here. All right, so there you have it. There is a lot of ways to get creative with this niche, but that's it for this one. See you in the next video.